Welcome everyone. I am Palum David in Abuja, and this is Africa Matters. ECOWAS faces looming crisis as Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger plan withdrawal raises security concerns and economic instability in the West African region. The West African bloc, ECOWAS, says it's ready for a negotiated solution with Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger after all three announced their withdrawal from the organization. All three are led by military juntas and argue the bloc has strayed from its founding principles and no longer serve their needs. Analysts say this is uncharted territory for the region and could be a turning point in history. Let's take a look at some of the challenges. The military-run government say they feel marginalized and antagonized by ECOWAS. The bloc imposed sanctions on them following coups in Mali in 2020, Burkina Faso in 2022 and Niger in 2023, which they see as infringements on their sovereignty and interference in their internal affairs. They also accused ECOWAS of failing to support them on terrorism and security while imposing what they see as unfair sanctions. The military regime believes that ECOWAS is influenced by foreign powers, accusing it of betraying its founding principles and becoming a threat to its member states. They object to ECOWAS' perceived alignment with foreign interests, particularly those of former colonial powers like France. After the coup in Niger, ECOWAS threatened to use force and reinstate the deposed president Mohamed Bazoum. The withdrawal will hinder free movement of people, trade and economic cooperation within the region. Essentially, it threatens the stability of the entire West African region. The departing countries believe their exit could pave the way for foreign intervention, potentially opening doors to partnerships with other international actors such as Russia and China. Let's hear more from Kayode Bolaji. He's the Executive Director, Peace Building Development Consult. He joins me here in Abuja. Good to have you, Kayode.
Thank you.
What factors contributed to Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger's decision to withdraw from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and how might this impact regional integration?
It's obvious. It's the lack of support the countries felt during their period of democratic experience. You will recall that these three countries, Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali, had to overthrow the democratically elected president through coup, which is not in alignment with the ECOWAS principle. So this misunderstanding could have been settled better than what we had, and I think that's the main factor. You know, those countries felt like they didn't get enough support from the regional body, and I think from the regional body there were a lot of pressures from other Western nations to maintain democracy. For a lot of researchers and analysts, we were warning at that time that we will need to rethink this properly. Not because those countries are not interested in democracy, but the kind of democracy that they were experiencing was not entirely beneficial to them. And this is just a matter of time. You know, people will react to government that they feel is not by the people and for the people.
What potential challenges and disruptions could arise in the region's trade and services flows, estimated to be worth nearly $150 billion annually, if the withdrawal from ECOWAS is carried through?
Yeah, trade is very important. I think it's not good at all, not just for trade, you know, for the region, for migration, for culture, for security, for military-wise. It's entirely going to be problematic. For me, I still hope that those three countries will not leave, that maybe this is a bargaining tool, you know, and if ECOWAS is smart enough, they should also see it like that, to say, okay, let's talk again, you know, look for every other means to talk, because it's almost like you're disintegrating a body. If those three countries leave, you cannot call yourself ECOWAS again. You know, this these are voluntary countries, the countries that volunteer to be called ECOWAS. So you'll have to look for a different name. Those countries are part of the region.
How does the withdrawal decision affect the millions of nationals from Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger who have settled in neighboring ECOWAS states, given the bloc's provisions for visa-free travel and the right to work?
That's a potential. That's a problem, actually. I can, as an analyst, I don't know how this separation is going to work. That's the truth. Because we're too united to be divided. To me, I mean, in Nigeria, there are several people from Burkina Faso, you know, the same as Burkina Faso, there's so many Nigerians, you know. I mean, these countries are so connected. People marry from, you know, the different countries, they have children, they have projects together, and this is something that has been going on for more than 50 years. So to separate that is not just going to be an announcement. Even the leaders of the three nations, you know, will have to rethink that decision. That's why I believe it may be a bargaining chip, you know, for negotiation, for proper negotiation.
Finally, how does ECOWAS plan to respond to the withdrawal of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, and what potential economic and political consequences could arise for the region?
My advice to ECOWAS is, so there is distrust among these three countries. They don't want to hear ECOWAS. They don't trust ECOWAS. ECOWAS can look for other intellectual bodies that are Pan-African, and they are there in every country, to try and mediate. Don't look for a political leader, because, you know, there will be that belief that they are playing the game of ECOWAS, so that you can get access again, because every relationship is built on trust, even nations, you know. You want that safe place. You want to create that convivial environment for people to believe you're for us. And that's what ECOWAS must do first. ECOWAS should forget about sponsoring nations, influential nations coming from the West or anywhere in the world. Let us deal with our issue and let us present a new architecture.
Thank you so much, Coyote. Thank you. ECOWAS has called for all three nations to return to civilian rule, as well as imposing sanctions. Bushra Gotkes reports on how the sanctions are hurting the people of Niger.
After months of tension, a major shock. Three military-led countries, Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali, have announced their withdrawal from the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, accusing the bloc of being under the influence of foreign powers. The effect of the announcement on food prices in Niger was immediate.
The fact is, inflation is caused by the closing of the borders. You will find that when the goods enter the country, then the prices fall. But 2 days later, they can rise if the commodities become scarce. For example, this cooking oils comes from Algeria, and prices vary depending on its availability on the market.
Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali were founding members of the West African bloc in 1975. ECOWAS provided the three landlocked countries free access to the ocean and other members' ports. The loss of that access is already being felt.
We're being accused of driving up prices. No, it's that when products don't come in, they necessarily become expensive. That's the only reason people see increases in the markets. So if we buy high, we sell high to make a little profit.
In the face of worsening economic hardship, it may prove difficult to maintain that support for long. Bushra Göktaş, Africa Matters.
To Eswatini now, where a poor healthcare system means only half of those infected with tuberculosis are ever diagnosed, but one man is on a mission to change that and save lives in the process. Noto Kanyamoso reports from Soko in Lomombo region of Africa's last absolute monarchy.
The difficult terrain and lack of access to healthcare make it difficult for people in remote rural communities to receive the treatment they need. But Sfiso Nzima is working tirelessly to bridge that gap, traveling by bicycle to reach those who need help the most.
Many of these homesteads are located in the mountains, and the roads are often in poor condition. But despite the challenges, I know that it's important to connect with these communities. Many people here have limited access to health care, and without our visit, they would not get the treatment they need.
42-year-old mother of four, Thandazile Nkambule, is one of the many people that Sfiso has helped. He noticed that she was coughing and collected a sample of her phlegm, which he took to the local clinic.
He not only tests us for diseases like tuberculosis and HIV, but he also brings us the medication we need. Without him, we will have traveled long distances to the nearest clinic, which is very difficult for us. Sfiso is a true lifesaver.
According to a 2022 World Health Organization report, there are about 4,200 new cases of tuberculosis in Eswatini every year. Many of these cases go undiagnosed and untreated for too long, leading to a cycle of transmission and illness. Despite the challenges of working in a rural community, Sfiso's determination and compassion have made a real difference in the fight against tuberculosis.
Since he started working, the number of cases have decreased by 20%. This is due to his tireless effort in reaching people who would at least have gone without care. His work has made a real difference in the fight against tuberculosis.
Although it is treatable, TB can quickly cause serious illness or death if left undiagnosed. And this is especially true for young children. The WHO estimates that 95% of children who die from TB each year worldwide were never diagnosed or treated. In addition, drug resistance and co-infections with HIV make it harder to tackle the disease. So the work of one person to lower that figure could really make a difference. Nokukhanya Musi, Africa Matters, Nzobo, Eswatini.
To the Gambia next, where albinism is a genetic condition, but like many other African countries, many born with it are discriminated against. That's why an organization has been formed to try and correct the misconceptions surrounding the harmless inherited conditions. Maimuna Ba reports.
Despite the blistering sun, Fanta likes to come and sit here when she seeks solace from the sometimes daily struggles of a living with albinism.
I was born as a person living with albinism. I have encountered a lot of stigma right from home, society, and at school. Even at home, my opinion doesn't matter. I stopped schooling. My teacher would always make fun of me and say, "I will take you to Tanzania and sell you." Class lessons were worse because I struggled to see the blackboard. My classmates wouldn't want to sit beside me.
Because of such inherited deep-rooted discrimination, cracking the corporate world is also a challenge for people living with albinism. But Jibril was able to defy the odds.
When I grew much older, I become conscious of my reality, and then I become more aware of the inner workings of our society. I decided to say to myself that the perception of people will not define who I am, and I see myself as equal to every other human being.
In the Gambia, people with albinism persistently confront misconceptions, often with tragic outcomes. The latest population census suggests that many as 1 in 1,500 people here have albinism, and as many as struggle grapple with societal prejudices, which shatters their dreams and aspirations.
Some people wrongly believe that the condition arises when a man has sex with a woman during her menstrual period. Such misinformation gave Jibril and others the motivation to start the Association of the Gambia Albinism. It donates sunscreens and visual aids to school children living with albinism, in addition to creating jobs.
All of us are people who have one way or another defied society, defied the odds, and are today excelling in our own domains. What we realized is that having experienced living with albinism and the associated challenges, having reached a level that we are able to move beyond what society defined us, it is our duty to also give back to our society. And how are we going to give back to our society is to establish an advocacy platform that will enlighten the Gambian people about what is albinism and what are the challenges facing albinism in this country.
Even though some societies have turned them into outcasts, many have risen above the odds, providing inspiration for those whom true persecutions have up till now been resigned to their fate. Maimuna Ba, Africa Matters, Banjul, Gambia.
Now to the Central African Republic, where one of the most devastating effects of decades of war is the disruption to child education. Now, a program implemented by the World Bank is working to help disadvantaged students catch up on their studies with the overall goal of helping more graduate high school. Randolph Nogo reports.
Pour décrire une situation, voilà.
In Thierry Gabagama's class, every hand is raised. Children in this classroom are particularly at risk of dropping out. Now they're being empowered to get to the next stage of their education.
Here we have a lot of examples, testimonies of kids who were at risk of dropping out, who were able to improve their levels thanks to the remedial courses, catching up with their peers and getting admitted to a higher grade.
The program, made possible by the Global Partnership for Education, aims to increase access for children living in disadvantaged areas.
I took part in the remedial course because I want to be a journalist. I have to speak languages well.
Children like Naomi, who may have been unable to keep up with their peers and are particularly vulnerable to dropping out, now are thriving.
She had issues with math and French during the school year, but now, thanks to the remedial courses, it's going better. She tries to read every day and it helps her a lot.
Since gaining independence in 1960, the Central African Republic has experienced decades of conflict and instability, including 6 coups. One of the casualties of war has been child education, but remedial programs at this school and hundreds of others are now benefiting tens of thousands of students.
It's an ongoing process, so we don't have the results yet to draw conclusions, but at least we can see the indicators. We are seeing evidence of improvement to the education sector thanks to the Global Partnership of Education.
Less than half of all girls and less than a third of all boys graduate high school in the Central African Republic. The government appears committed to change that. Programs like these indicate an awareness that children really are the future, especially in a country with almost half of its population under the age of 14. Randolph Nogle, Africa Matters.
Lagos, the largest city in Nigeria, is working to clean up its streets. The local authorities have implemented a ban to reduce solid waste, but public opinion over the move is divided. Elias Hafchi reports.
Walk through the streets of Lagos and you're likely to encounter blocked drains filled with plastic and polystyrene, commonly known as styrofoam. But now, officials have decided to change that. Single-use plastics and styrofoam are no longer allowed in the city.
The styrofoam packs are the main issue with Nigeria's waste problem, always blocking the pipes and the drainages, and then they're not reusable and barely biodegradable, barely. So they are all over the streets, all over the markets, in every corner, and honestly I personally find them annoying. I prefer the reusable packs because once you buy one, you're using it for the next 3 days.
But some believe the ban creates other problems.
They were supposed to bring out waste bill for this junction or corner of somewhere, so that anybody that use the plates or take away, he will throw it inside the waste bin. Not to bound it, because all fingers are not equal. Because this is the cheapest plate people use to buy food, sharp to eat and go to work.
Plastic waste takes decades or even centuries to decompose. Styrofoam takes 500 years. Environmentalists say it's about time the substance was banned.
It's long overdue, and because they've waited so long, it's become more urgent. It's a terrible health hazard. It's terrible. And also, blocking the drains and the potential for flooding and so on. But definitely it has to be backed with an intensive grassroots awareness campaign. And I believe that, government should be more concerned in being able to persuade people not to want to do it than to have to force the people.
Whether the ban is necessary or enough are topics for citizens to debate, but it's certain it is a step toward environmental responsibility. Ilyas Avcı, Africa Matters.
With host country Ivory Coast through to the quarterfinals of the African Cup of Nations, drivers of shared taxis in Yamoussoukro are competing in a football-themed competition of their own. Shared cabs, known as cabas or masses, are known for its colorful decorations, and the drivers are trying to outdo one another to attract clients by having elaborate portraits of famous players painted onto their vans. Claire Henroyd has more.
Cristiano Ronaldo spotted on the streets of Yamoussoukro. Kind of. The Portuguese striker is one face adorning the city's shared taxis. They operate on specific routes and are known for their arte designs. And football is the driver's current craze in the host country of the African Cup of Nations.
I've been a driver for 10 years, and I really like the footballer artwork, which is why I have it on the van I drive, and I really like football.
Lupuya Konasi B is an artist who's been commissioned to paint retired Ivory Coast international Gervinho onto a van.
Demand is high because when we paint images like this, it's as if it changes the van. It's a simple van, but once there's a painting on it, even the driver is motivated. Very often, it's the driver who decides to put this or that person on the back. So it's an image that's important to them, and that interests the passengers.
And the owner's thrilled with the end result.
It's magnificent, truly magnificent. I encourage the artist to paint more vans and show he takes his job seriously. It's really beautiful.
Footballers aren't the only famous faces in Yamoussoukro's transport network. The city's transit system may not be as organised and extensive as in larger cities, but it has its charms. Claire Herriot, Africa Matters.
The 34th edition of the African Cup of Nations is already receiving accolades for being one of the best organized tournaments in the recent history of the competition. Scheduled to have taken place in 2023, the Confederation of African Football, organizers of the tournament, had to move it forward for several reasons. 3 weeks into the tournament, fans and journalists are scoring the 2023 AFCON high despite glitches experienced with ticketing. Samson Omale reports from Abidjan.
So that's the kind of excitement and mood you get here at the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations. The matches have gone into the knockout stages and teams are beginning to leave the competition while others are struggling to get towards the semi-finals and eventually even the finals of the competition. I spoke to a few of the fans to gauge their thoughts as to what they think about the organization and of course being here in Ivory Coast for the Nations Cup.
Ivory Coast is hospitality. They have hospitality. They have many people here. They have Malian, they have Guinean. I come from Guinea. But, you know, I feel like I'm in my country.
It's a really lovely country here. It's my first time south of Sahara in Africa. So, yeah, it's wonderful to get away from the freezing cold in the UK.
One major issue that has confronted the organizers of the 2023 AFCON is the issue of tickets.
For the moment, it has been very good, except maybe the tickets, which are complicated to get, but it has been very, very good for now.
Every time when we went to the office to get the ticket, every time they said that they don't have a ticket, but when we came to the stadium, we realized the stadium is not full.
This is the media center at the Alassane Ouattara Stadium de Mbimpe, and this is where journalists will often meet after any particular match to continue to push in their work to their various organizations. And there are over 5,000 journalists who have been accredited to cover this game. One of such journalists is Saheed Afolabi. Saheed, I'd like to find out from you. I mean, looking at after almost 2-3 weeks of competition, what will you say are your major takeaways so far far from the 2023 AFCON?
It has been fantastic. The Ivorian authorities, we need to commend them. I think they've really done well and given us the best AFCON so far. No controversies on referees, and it shows no teams actually above the rules and regulations. We saw some teams that were being fined. So it has been a fantastic tournament. We also saw the host nation beating 4-0 on their home ground in front of their home fans.
The 2023 AFCON will be remembered by many as one competition that threw up the less fancy teams and pushing out the giants of African football out of the group stages. Now that the competition is drawing to a close, there are hopes that these less fancy teams will find their way right into the finals of the competition.
This week, we explore Calabar, a port town in southern Nigeria. The old city is known as the country's tourism capital, thanks to Donald Duke, the former governor of Cross River State. Under his administration, Calabar was the cleanest and most environmentally friendly city in Nigeria. Let's take a closer look. That's our show this week. Let us know what you think about the stories we've covered this week and share your ideas on what you would like us to cover on X using the hashtag Africa Matters. You can also find us on YouTube by searching for TRT World Africa Matters. Thanks for watching, and it's goodbye from me, Palum David in Abuja.